If you're only using networking to grow your business, you're going to lose. Hey, I'm Donnie Bovine, the CEO of Success Champion Networking and best-selling author. Hanging out with me as always is Kevin Snow, the sales automation tactician and genius. And in this episode, guys, we're going to walk through how if you're only networking as your business development strategy, it's a surefire way to not grow your business. Man, I can remember when I was really young in the networking game and just figuring it out. And I just found, a lot of these business happy hours. Like Kevin, I know you did a lot of business happy hours as well, right? And early on, I really thought that I had to be like the super networker everywhere, every location, and be at all the events and be seen and heard. And man, I can tell you, I was doing 3 to 5 after hours events a week, breakfasts every morning, participating in networking groups, joining networking groups. And one day it dawned on me, if I actually had any fucking business, I wouldn't have time to be doing all this fucking networking that I'm actually doing. So yeah, once upon a time, I got known in my city as one of the most one of the most known people in town. But it took a while for me to understand that just networking was not building my business. It actually wasn't bringing in hardly any revenue because I was at more events and not doing the things I needed to do inside those events to bring on business. So we're going to dive into why just networking is a surefire way to really fuck up your business development game.
It seems like on the surface, it should be this no-brainer that, hey, if I can get a ton of referrals, not prospect, this would be awesome. And it really, when you look at it, it's like, that's what I want. But there are some major cons to that whole concept that actually really damage your ability to be a good networker. And if you're living that in that world where it's like, I want to get all the referrals and I'm going to have all these people referring me, you're not referring anyone to them. And
100%. And to that point, I mean, you're on it, because at that point, I mean, you eventually know everybody in the network.
Yeah.
Right. And if you only know everybody in the network, there's nobody left to really introduce or the likes.
Well, you've literally become the person in your network that is not providing any value to anyone else.
Exactly. Right.
Because
that means you're we are talking to fuck over each other today.
Yeah, we are, because we both want to say the same things, and this is something we're both really passionate about. Because I've seen it where people's like, yeah, I get 85% of my business from referrals. I'm like, then you suck at business, and they're usually looking at me funny when I say that. But you're literally just, if you're getting all your business through referrals, you're literally just passing other people's business around. And you're not out generating new stuff.
Yeah, it's literally like you're putting your entire business success in the hands of somebody else and say, please, for the love of God, keep me in business. And when you can't bring something back to the network, then you will eventually lose all value, because people are realizing that all you're doing is feeding off the whole and not contributing to the overall survival of everybody that you're doing networking with.
Yeah, and you see this a lot in some networking groups where you have a ton of members who've been there for a long time. They know each other really well. And they literally just, one gets a referral and they pass it around the group. So you'll have one or two people who are actually doing really good business development, and they're going out and prospecting and getting involved with other groups and being visible in other communities and bringing in business. And then they're developing that, and then they're passing it off to other people. And then you'll have the other people in the group like, yeah, I get 85% of my business from this group. It's like, well, yeah, because you have Bob and Steve over there that are actually prospecting and growing their business, and you're just riding their coattails. And
eventually Bob and Steve are going to go away, and when they do, that whole group dies.
Or they're going to say, screw this, why am I doing all the work?
Right. And eventually Bob and Steve or Sally and Tim, whoever was the main person who
Yep.
brought in the referrals, they're out because nothing's being reciprocated. They're literally carrying the weight of the group. And that's why you see so many people launch their own networking groups in different styles, because they're trying to up the caliber of people, inside there, because they want to hang out with people that are getting after it as hard as they are. And most people, because they don't want to go out and actually do the business development shit, rely on fucking networking to be the thing they do to grow their business, because everything else sounds scary and, forces them to put themselves the fuck out there.
I mean, I have to do stuff myself, but that's not fun. So,
Right?
all right. So
Yeah.
I got a question for you. What
All right.
percent of your business development do you think should be from networking?
You know, the first number that ran in my head was about a 50-50 split. I think about 50% of your time should be out growing and conjuring up your business through conversations, meeting people, cold outreaches, warm conversations, and the like. And I think the other 50% needs to come from your network, but it's not coming from just one networking group. It's coming from all your networking activities that allow you to get into all the right conversations. So, some people literally have like one networking group and that's their sole livelihood of their business. And you all know one of the most scariest positions to be is have one networking group be your sole fucking form of networking. What about you?
Yeah,
How much of your business?
I was kind of going back and forth in my head between that 25 and the 50%. I think 50 sounds really good. And I think I'm really comfortable with that. The key in there, though, is in that 50% is that diversification. You
Yeah.
have to have multiple groups going. If you're just sitting in one networking group and that is your whole thing, you're missing out on a ton of opportunity. It's those other networking groups that you're in and the other networking you're doing at events or conferences or whatnot. That's where you bring the value to the group you're in.
Yeah, for sure. And let's be honest, if any group says that you can only network as in this group and be a part of this group and you can't be anywhere else, that is such a bullshit stance to look at anything, because they're literally trying to tell you how to build your business. And look, if you're not doing networking groups, if you're not doing the conferences and the after hours and the trade shows, and the live workshops and all the different places that, for me, networking is a combination of a consistent group of some sort and then tons of activity that feed that consistent group through a whole bunch of activities. But a lot of networking should be meeting people, new people, on a regular basis, not just hanging out with your people that you hang out and network with. You've got to go meet and get amongst other people. And I'm just a firm believer you bring
Yeah.
those newfound people back to your damn world.
But then you also have to have that other side. You have to have the cold outreach going. You have to
Yep.
have something that you're doing that's bringing people that aren't in one of your networking spheres into your world. Whether you are actively working Facebook groups, which we've talked about in previous episodes, you're using LinkedIn to do reach outs, you are SEO to get people to in your world, whatever that is that's driving traffic and getting new people that you don't know in front of you. That's a really key part, because those are now new people that you can introduce, and they're new people that you have opportunity to build those relationships with and open up a whole new stream of networking. And I
Yeah,
think a
for
lot of
sure.
people, when they get that new client, they don't think about that. They're like, oh, I got my network. Well, what the fuck? You have this new person, you don't know any of their network. Why aren't you trying to figure out how to open that door? And why aren't you figure out how do we build something here that now I have this whole new networking area that I'm getting a bunch of new people in that I can now introduce to all the other people. That was one of my big issues for the longest time. Is I had my veteran friends and I had my business networking friends, and then I had clients, and then I had family, and there were all these groups that were just separate, and I didn't let them interact. mostly because I was afraid of them interacting with my veterans and getting offended. Like, oh my God, I can't believe.
Well, let's be
Yeah,
honest. There's some truth
yeah,
there.
totally.
Right?
But
Yeah.
I didn't want those worlds to interact for whatever reason. But now I'm like, screw it. I want everyone to be involved with everything and overlap, because I have no idea what cool things and what cool opportunities that's going to open up.
Yeah, for sure. And you can always tell when someone shows up somewhere where you're at, and networking is the only thing they do, because when they explain what they do for a living, they literally are pitching the room.
Yes.
And, I saw a guy last week at an event, and he did some sort of supplemental insurance for like Medicare or something. And this dude just kept droning on about how his process of helping people get Medicare and how it's such a and literally it was like this diatribe fucking pitch of why you should, be using his Medicare services. And you're going to run across a lot of people that come out with that desperation slash commission breath, and it's because they don't know how to get business outside of networking, and they're looking at networking as their sole prospecting list, which means they have to sell something to the network or they don't eat. And we all feel it.
Yeah, and it's like they think networking events are a trade show where they
Right.
have a booth.
And then they set up the booth,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And they're literally treating networking like they have a booth at some trade show event, and they're trying to pitch everyone in front of them because they're coming into their booth, and that's their job. When that's not how you network. When I was working, even when I would do trade shows, I would leave a couple, especially the newer reps, off to do the booth thing and do the pitching. And then I was going to go work the crowd, and I was going to go hover
Yeah.
at other booths and figure out who was there and strike up conversations and, hang out by the food court and eat and talk to people and do stuff. And then eventually every once in a while come back and so I could give my other reps a break. But, you know, I hated that part of the sales development piece, the pitching at a booth, and doing it at networking just seems so, you know,
Dirty.
dirty. Yeah. Greasy, slimy, gross, all those negative words.
Yeah, and I love that you painted the picture like that. It's like they had the trade show booth. That's a fucking great analogy. It's like they're sitting there, and every person they walks up to them. They're like, "Hey, let me tell you what I do. Let me do this, right?" And they never ever try and, or if they do ask the other person what they do, they don't mean it.
Yep.
You can see them instantly like turn off as soon as somebody else talking, because they're waiting to get back to their fucking pitch and talk some more.
Yeah, they're like you at the craft fair with your pirate outfit, trying to get people to come in
Yes.
and buy hand turned mugs from you and your brother. It's literally what they're doing
Absolutely.
at networking events.
Oh, and if you guys didn't know about that, me and my brother and dad make these homemade wooden mugs, and we'll go out to trade shows. But when we go out to trade shows, my brother and I go in full pirate gear, and I will sit out in the middle of the crowd and scream and yell and holler, "Mugs this way! Hey, come this way! You'll get mugged!" And everything is a pitch to get them to our actual booth. And that's what it feels like when people are at networking events and functions where networking is their only business. They're like, "Hey, give me referrals. I need your business. Come listen to me. I want to pitch you my shit." And it just wears out the fucking room.
They're a carny barker.
Yeah, very much. There's an actual term for that, and I forget that they say at the Ren fairs that they call that, but I'm gonna remember that fucking phrase and start using it on a more regular basis. But here's the thing, guys. I don't care what you sell. Networking is going to play a role in it. Some people have to network in very specific arenas and places. So it's not traditional networking of sitting in groups and alike. So there's always people that are going to struggle with, one style of networking. But, even every business out there, you've got to be doing some sort of business development strategy outside of the cold reach outs, outside of, outside of network. You got to be doing the cold reach outs. You've got to do the hand raising stuff. So, so you got to figure out, do I put cold calling into my life? Do I do cold emailing? Do I do private messaging? Do I use direct mail? Do I go door to door? One of those cold activities. But then you also need to put in, some sort of hand raising activity. And the hand raising activities are you speaking on stages? Are you getting on podcasts? Are, you putting out content on social media? Are you being interviewed on podcast? Any place where you can put out some sort of information where people, can raise their hand and say, I'm interested and want more. And what's sad is one of the greatest business development tools of all times is getting on freaking stage. Because if you get on stage and you teach a crowd or you host a workshop, man, a lot of motherfuckers will raise their hand and say, I'm interested and want to know more about you. And, that's the value in one being able to get business outside of networking is amazing. The value two is bringing that business back to your network is fucking beast mode. Because if you start bringing those clientels back to, your network and help them grow their businesses through the introductions or referrals, that reciprocating relationship that's built is second to none. And if you get a whole group that's focused on that, watch the fuck out,
Yep.
because that shit's gonna blow up and be a ton of damn business.
There's always been this rule of thumb for business development that and growing your client base that you don't want to have a client that's providing more than 10% of your average monthly revenue. And the whole thought behind that is that, well, if you have that client that's, that whale that's doing 50% of your revenue and then they leave for whatever reason because you screw something up, they need different services, whatever it is, they're gone. Now you're fucked.
Yep.
Now you're trying to figure out, how do I pay for stuff? How do I make payroll? Because I was planning on this big chunk of revenue. The same is true for your business development. Yep. If you have one, whether it's networking or social media or lead magnets, whatever that channel is doing more than 10 to 15% of your business development, you need to be careful that it doesn't disappear. You need to make sure you have other stuff on there that's able to take up the slack and replace it if something happens.
100%. I'm curious from you, Kevin. On your networking journey, where was the moment you realized that you had to be doing more than networking? Because I mean, you were as heavy involved inside of networking as I was, running a ridiculous amount of chapters,
Yeah.
And the likes. For you, when did you figure out that you had to do something outside of the network?
So for me, it was when I did the big pivot into the sales consulting piece. And I needed to have, I needed to have more than just the networking that I was doing. I needed to have different access to different people is what I'm trying to spit out of my mouth this morning.
Easy for you to say.
I need to, yeah, not so much on a Monday morning after drill. So I had to have different groups that I was networking with that was getting me a higher class client that could pay more for what I was doing. But then I also needed to figure out how I was doing the outreach and how I was getting people to come in. And it was a number of things for me. One, it was I had that realization at the exact same time that I was like, oh crap, I've spent way too much time trying to be a CEO and not doing business development and growing my business. I have a cool company. People will come and spend money with me. That's not actually how it works. So I kind of had those two realizations together.
Yeah, what's funny is as you were talking, that's the first thought that ran through my head, because I was kind of asking myself too, what was that moment? And for me, it was the same thing. It was the bigger clientele. When you got to go after bigger clients and you want to go after bigger business, then most traditional networking can't get you there, because the people that are out in those outside of like SEN, what we do with Success Champions Networking, most other networking out there is very much focused on small deals, small clients, and those type of things. But if you really want to go after big business, then you've got to either join Success Champion Networking, where there's people going after bigger business, but you also need to figure out how do you go get that bigger business, because you come to a higher caliber of network without your own network to bring to the table of clientele and stuff, and you'll get eaten alive. You won't last long, because people do not leave or let people stay in their world is if they're not bringing as much value as they are bringing to the table.
Yeah. So you said something, and I think we need to add it to our topic list. You said you need to, if you're going into a network, you need to bring your network with you. Um, I want to make sure that statement doesn't scare people away, because I think a lot of people don't realize how big their network actually is. Because I've had multiple conversations with business owners that told me that they didn't know anyone, and then by the time I was done, they had the list of like 40 or 50 people. I'm like, I thought you didn't know anyone. You know lots of people, and
Right.
we've only been doing this for 20 minutes. So don't what Donnie and I say about you need to bring your network with you scare you away, because you're like, oh, I don't have a network. You do have a network. You just don't know what it is or how to activate it. That's
Well said.
different.
Well said.
So, get into that new network and expand your horizons of who you're interacting with, and then really start to figure out who they need to have. And then try it and actually look at your contact list. Say, who do I know? Don't just say, oh, I don't know anyone. Actually start thinking about it. Be purposeful about how you are going through that relationship building. And it's going to become second nature, and you're going to be like, wow, I know lots of people.
Yeah, I can tell you guys, if you've never really sat down with Kevin and asked him about networking and the veracity of an offensive networking strategy this guy has, I highly fucking recommend it. We should actually get you to start talking at the summit and stuff about more specifically about networking, because you just got a cool
how
way
to
of
be
looking
how to be offensive in networking.
Dude, we're gonna make that happen some way, somehow. How to be offensive in networking. So, but guys, yeah, I think the biggest thing, and hopefully you guys are stuck with us as long and understood that the biggest thing we want you to understand is do not let networking be your sole source of revenue coming into your business. Make sure you're deploying business development strategies and tactics outside of networking, so you can be more valuable to your network as a whole, but
Yep.
you know your business will grow more rapidly the more business you can bring to your network.
So one thing with that if you're going to know and understand where your business is coming from, so that you don't let that happen, because it'll happen, because it's just so much easier. It's like, oh, I'm getting referrals, and you'll just keep doing that, and you'll get sucked in.
Yep.
You actually need to purposefully track where your clients come from. You need to be able to do that attribution step in the marketing and business development piece. You need to know that, hey, I got this from Success Champions Networking. I got this one from a Facebook group. I got this one from, I went to this event. And you'd be able to look at it on a regular basis and know, hey, all right, so I have a good mix. Or, wow, I
Right.
did really great with this thing this month. But if you're not looking at that type of activity, you're not going to know. And all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, wow, I'm not doing any business development. I'm all here in this one group. And
Yeah,
now
dude,
you're going to be
it's such a
scrambling to
great
fix
point.
stuff.
Yeah. And I can tell you, most people don't have a real understanding of where all their business comes from. So
No.
it's such a huge, man, we should do an episode specifically on just tracking, your business development activities. We're just coming up with all kinds of episodes as part of this one. So, but guys, do us a solid on this one. And, if you got this far and you're still hanging with us, make sure you're subscribed to the show. Please share this out with one person. And, as always, thanks for hanging with us. Thanks for all the support. We fucking love the messages and stuff that we get from you guys via, LinkedIn or emails and the like. So thanks for sticking with us through this, man. More good stuff to come. And as always, love you, mean it. See you. Bye.